This newborn Oryx doesn't realize it yet, but it's going to experience a great adventure. It's destined to go back to the wild. The Arabian oryx once roamed the deserts of the Arabian Peninsula in large numbers. Its gleaming white coat and its long, straight horns may have given rise to the myth of the unicorn. Celebrated in ancient poetry for its beauty and its ability to survive in harsh desert conditions, the Arabian oryx was not able to survive the encroachment of humans. Grazing lands were lost to sheep and goats, and the oryx themselves were hunted to extinction in the wild. The last wild oryx was probably killed as recently as 1972. In 1986, the National Wildlife Research Centre was established near the city of Taif. Following the success of Operation Oryx in Oman, with the reintroduction of captive-bred animals back into the wild, the NWRC was chosen as the base for Saudi Arabia's own Oryx reintroduction project. Oryx were brought to the NWRC from collections in the Middle East and from zoos in the United States. An outbreak of tuberculosis in the first founder animals prompted the management of captive oryx as 3 distinct generations. Founders, their offspring, which are removed at birth and hand-reared, and the 3rd generation animals, which are reared by their mothers in large enclosures. This 3rd generation forms the majority of the oryx due for release. Because they have had little contact with humans, they are very wild, and therefore sensitive to the stress of being handled and transported. High levels of stress in such conditions can lead to lameness or even death. The first stage of the reintroduction involves the translocation of animals from the Taif Centre to the release site in the protected area. This film shows the process of translocating oryx to ensure they arrive as fit and healthy animals, ready for the rigours of the wild. It's 1995, the year of Saudi Arabia's first release of oryx back into the wild, into the unfenced Uruq Bani protected area on the western edge of the great sand desert known as the Ruba Khali, or Empty Quarter. To the local inhabitants, it is known simply as the Sands. Three months before the oryx are due to be moved, the serious preparations begin.
I mean, she's young, she's just 10 months old, but the number 312.
The animals chosen for release are placed in special enclosures to begin training for the translocation. The oryx to be released into the wild will hopefully form the basis of a whole new population. They must therefore be chosen carefully to ensure a spread of ages, an equal number of males and females, and the group must represent a diverse genetic background. During capture and handling, the oryx receive booster injections for protection against rabies, foot and mouth disease, rinderpest, and pasteurellosis, and against internal parasites. Blood samples are taken to test for any trace of tuberculosis infection or any genetic abnormalities. Oryx failing these tests will not be released. In the month before the translocation, the oryx are trained to accustom them to being held in narrow crates and to the movement and noises of the transportation. 3 nights a week they are enclosed in small pens. They are loaded in crates and held for increasing periods, from 2 to as many as 15 hours at a time. They're even driven around the centre for between 30 minutes and 2 hours to simulate the bumps and noises of the real move. Three days before the translocation, the Oryx are weighed and injected with a long-acting tranquilizer. This reduces the nervousness of the Oryx, but does not put them to sleep. The drug starts to have an effect 24 hours after the injection, and the Oryx will remain quiet for 3 to 4 days after that. After 1 week, all the animals will have fully recovered. 1 day to go. The horns of the Oryx are fitted with plastic pipes to reduce the likelihood of injuries, and their ears are stopped with cotton swabs to reduce noise. Time to go. The whole journey by road, by air, and by road again lasts up to 9 hours. Who's more stressed now, men or Oryx? Perhaps the vets could do with some long-acting tranquilizer for themselves. On arrival at the plateau at the edge of the sands, the Oryx are moved into small pens and held for 3 days to recover from the journey. All the Oryx are fitted with radio transmitters and numbered collars so that biologists can locate and identify each animal no matter where it goes. The cotton is taken out of the ears and the pipes are removed from the horns. In the first stage of the release, the Oryx are moved into a 4-hectare enclosure where they will stay for up to 10 weeks, becoming accustomed to their new surroundings. After all this, it appears as if there have been no problems. The animals are all in good health and are ready for release, back into the dunes from where Arabia's wild Oryx so recently disappeared. The release itself is a major event for wildlife conservation in Saudi Arabia and is attended by a number of VIPs, including His Royal Highness Prince Sultan bin Abdulaziz and His Royal Highness Prince Saud Al Faisal, along with official guests from the Gulf states.
مبتداه مسيرة الراية عندك مبتداه مسيرة الراية عندك مبتداه مسيرة يا مرحبا حييت يا صايب الشوق الراية عندك مبتداه مسيرة الراية عندك مبتداه مسيرة الراية عندك مبتداه مسيرة أنا أشهد أن اليوم نور على نور وطير غراد واستلذ بمطيرة وطير غراد واستلذ بمطيرة وطير غراد واستلذ بمطيرة.
Once the Oryx are outside the enclosure, they are free to wander wherever they like. The reserve has no fences. Rangers and biologists closely monitor the movements, behaviour and health of the Oryx, tracking the signals of the radio transmitters from the ground and from the air. During the 3 months since they were set free, the Oryx have dispersed from the release site, moving as much as 100 kilometres or more into the dunes. Small herds forming and breaking up as the animals adjust to new hierarchies. The timely arrival of late spring rains has meant that grazing conditions are good and that the Oryx are able to find sufficient food despite competition from domestic camels in the reserve. The signs are all good, but it is still too early to make any prediction about the long-term survival of the Oryx. It is hoped that our young Oryx will adapt to wild conditions, will survive and reproduce, will manage to avoid poachers and will eventually help create a new population of Arabian Oryx, free once again to roam the Arabian sands.